from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our 31 days of cop films and gangster films from the year 1970 to the present day. And that brings us to a work which, well, in the police film or cop film genre, I should say, for today's video, or for this particular video today, I'd like to focus on the cop film or the police film genre, and specifically a film that is described as having been released in 1997. And this is a work that I remember seeing in the theater when it was released. I was so excited when I first saw the trailers, when I first heard about what this was and the marketing. It was very intriguing. It was very exciting. It was high levels of anticipation because of what I understood what the story was about and the context, and it was about police and police corruption and internal affairs and investigations, this line between certain communities of New York police officers and New Jersey, and specifically a place that's depicted in the film called Garrison, and also the cast. The cast was and is electrifying. So I'm speaking about a work which is from writer-director James Mangold, and it has among its really great cast people like Harvey Keitel and Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro and Annabelle Sciorra, and also starring Sylvester Stallone. This is the work which is Copland. Copland is a very interesting film indeed. I think it is a very ambitious work. It is a work that is, as I was trying to hint at earlier, a film that is talking about police officers, people on the law enforcement side of the law. And we're talking about essentially two communities of police officers, or maybe three in a manner of speaking. And I referred to them earlier. One being the police officers of a specific precinct that is mentioned or referenced regarding New York City. And then we also have the Internal Affairs Division that seems to be trying to investigate possible links to police corruption, and also links to underground criminal activities, if there are there. And then the third community is that of the New Jersey Garrison local enforcement, as represented by the characters like Sylvester Stallone and also Janine Garofalo, etc., and how their interactions play out over the course of the running time of this film. And so this is a very intriguing work that is set off in terms of its plot, perhaps almost immediately, by very intense events that we see opening the film. And because of these events, we see, or we get a sense of, the spiraling forward of what could be said to be an example of what might be perceived to be, quote unquote, the corruption of this certain group of officers that we are meeting. And how that is an example that is latched onto by means of the plot of this film. In other words, the direct plot of the film, or this maybe the A-line plot of the film, the A story, as it were, seems to be about this direct set of very intense circumstances that is leading various characters down the line of the possibilities of police corruption. And that, I mean, therefore, that the Harvey Keitel character seems to be at possibly the center, or somehow related to these types of activities. We're not sure. That's up to people like Robert De Niro's character and Internal Affairs to try to investigate. And part of that investigation, or part of that interaction, is where they live, which is in this community of Garrison, which is, of course, having its local police officers with Sylvester Stallone, etc. And so we have all these interacting pieces, or these pieces, I should say, that they tend to interact, or they are trying to interact, or they're perhaps on a collision course through one way or another. And that collision course is further solidified as the plot progresses forward. Because as I say, this A story of these immediate plot events lead to other steps, leading to other steps, leading to other steps, and leading to, say, perpetrators needing to hide or needing to cover up what happened in the previous step. In order to do that, they need to do something else, and that something else leads to something else, and that something else leads to something else. And all along the while, we have the Sylvester Stallone character who is yearning for things, longing for things, and wanting for things, but losing out as we understand the plot, as we understand his character, and it's introduced along the way. And then also, I forgot to add the great performance by Ray Liotta, who plays a very, very central role in this. He seems to be a character that is occupying this interesting area between and among these various points that I mentioned earlier in terms of the collision course between and among the communities, as it were. And Ray Liotta occupies this space perhaps in between. And he has some really great dialogue scenes and some really great heavy emotional scenes as well, and so it's wonderful to see him in action. Speaking of the performances too, I have to mention the one of the great strengths of this film is the gathering of all these uh, really premier actors and performers all across the board. Everyone does such a great job in doing what it is he or she uh, uh, does to bring to the table the high stakes drama from and how these relationships are really very important. So I say, as an example of this, the great performances. I think Robert De Niro really delivers some of those some of the scenes that he appears in. I mentioned that I saw this film in the theater, and I saw it with my mother back in the 90s. And after we saw it, she would be all that week. She would just be repeating the lines of dialogue from Robert De Niro. And it was just so great, and it's he has some really great scenes in here. And the same is true too for Harvey Keitel, who has a very, very important role in terms of his relationship vis-a-vis this story of police and police corruption, as well as the relationship between IA and also the relationship with Garrison and Sylvester Stallone character. And so he seems to inhabit this very, very important critical space, and he delivers it so well and with such cold ice precision, and almost a sense of a type of maybe morally ambiguous loyalty from a certain point of view that is also perhaps more self-serving than one might realize on paper. But that's one of the great brilliant aspects of this performance, which is overall quite brilliant indeed. And so there is this intensity that he brings to this and to other films that he has appeared in. Harvey Keitel. And that intensity, I think, is magnetic when we see their interactions or his interactions with the other characters here. For example, the Robert De Niro character and also the Sylvester Stallone character. And I mentioned too the Sylvester Stallone character. He plays also a modest role, a role that is for maybe for lack of a better phrase, a type of quote unquote loser role, a role where he has lost out on many opportunities throughout his life through for one reason or another that are revealed somewhat early on, and yet one of the great character arcs or the one of the great moments of potential sympathy or empathy is, will he succeed? Will this character, who is so humble and so he's lost out on a lot of things, will he succeed or will he fail? Will he win or will he lose yet again? And that becomes another crux of the drama. That becomes another way in which we too become involved. He is not infallible. He is someone that admittedly makes mistakes, or he has made mistakes, and maybe he continues to make mistakes, but still he is presented in this very humane way, in this very affable and caring way. And I think Sylvester Stallone does a really great job with this. It's almost like a it feels like it's something that might not necessarily at the time. I remember one of the great points of the marketing and the talking points of the film at the time of its release was just how seemingly against type this role was for Sylvester Stallone. And I can see to a certain degree how that can be the case. But we have to remember Sylvester Stallone is a really great, a fine actor, and he here I think exhibits those traits very, very strongly, and he does it in a way that is also showing a type of tiredness and a type of wariness about life and his physicality. I mean, he uses his physicality, or maybe I should just clarify, when in terms of against type or with type. Uh, Perhaps one of the things too is Sylvester Stallone, in the 80s and 90s, perhaps was known or is known for his really wonderfully physical roles, or the roles in which he exhibits or he shows his really exceptional physicality, and how he uses that to great effect in all the roles that he is maybe really well known for. Here in Copland, there is an interesting thing where he is using his physicality in a way that almost is detrimental to the spirit of the character. Almost it's like it's this weight or burden on him, rather than something that he can use to his advantage. So that becomes, I think, a very critical aspect of his character and the performance, and the way that Sylvester Stallone performs it and pulls it off, I think is really quite exceptional. And so for that and for other reasons, I think the performances and character dynamics in this film, I think, are really great indeed. Now, I started this conversation with the idea of an A story, and that implies therefore that there are B stories and C stories. In other words, the way that this film is told, I think it focuses on the A story, the direct nature of the plot, and how that links to police corruption, and how that links therefore to other potential areas of corruption, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I was listening to this, or I was thinking about how I would love to have seen. I mean, I think this film is really, really good. I think maybe one of the I understand that one of the general criticisms made against the film is perhaps how it seems to be laying the foundation for a really ambitious, wide sweeping, epic plot. And maybe it, because of its ambitions, it's focusing in not on all of those ambitious points of epic plot points, but rather it's focusing on one example of that quote unquote police corruption angle. And so I am feeling every time I see this, I'm very absorbed in the story, that I would love to have seen uh, all the dimensions, all the angles of the years of say corruption, or the years of quote unquote dirty work that are implied over the course of I would have loved to have seen that. Uh, we get a limited running time, and so perhaps it doesn't. We don't get that particular wide sweeping epic angle to the film, but rather we get the focusing in on this a plot story, and that gives the backdrop, or that gives the indication of these various references to things that have happened in the past or in the present, things that are hidden, things that are beneath the surface. Maybe they remain under the surface, but they explode forth again using this A story as an example. But be that as it may, I think it still operates within this context. I think it operates as a very fine entertainment indeed. It may not necessarily be my absolute favorite in terms of this cop or police corruption drama genre or subgenre or category, but it's certainly one that I remember enjoying when I first saw it, and I still enjoy and I'm engaged with when I watch it even now. And I think that is due, I think, to the earnest nature in which those ambitions of plot are established, and how they show us in a really nice and direct way the wrinkles and the complexities, while maintaining a sense of fidelity to the directness of the A plot, while also giving a nice showcase or set pieces to the great performances. So I think that could also be seen as a type of a positive point. It's a film that made me want to see more of the world, as it were. So, but what we do see, I think, is I think a nice, really engaging work of entertainment within this genre, indeed. So, this is the work from 1997 and James Mangold. And by the way, there are some scenes of dialogue that are really, really quite exceptional. So, I mentioned some Robert De Niro scenes and dialogue. So, they're up there in terms of memorable lines of dialogue. So. I think this is, if you're into the police film or cop film genre, or the corruption subcategory subgenre, I think you'll find a lot here to like. So this is the work from '97 from James Mangold, and this is Copland. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.